So good morning and welcome to our presentation on the retail trend of Kangaroo Shops. Today we're going to be talking about Kangaroo Shops, which is a relatively new concept in retail, but it's based on an old format. So for as long as there have been department stores, there have been branded boutiques in department stores. So like the Clinique counter, the Levi's store, so forth. And what would happen with those is the department store would purchase the product and the department store would then sell the product for the brand. But what's happening now is the brands are actually coming into the department stores, putting up their own shops with their own staff, with their own registers, with their own control over inventory to really keep that brand message as true as possible. And they are doing it across the US and Canada as well as in Europe. And we use this graphic to sort of pictorialize what's happening, because it's not a little brand that's coming in as the Kangaroo Shop. There are really big brands to do it. This all began because Prada opened up a store inside Saks Fifth Avenue in New York in their Fifth Avenue flagship. And Prada obviously is a huge brand, Saks is a huge brand, but the Prada store was just Prada merchandise, Prada staff, Prada registers, Prada display inside the Saks store, so it was a full experience. So I'm going to take you through a few examples that we love the most from the Kangaroo Shop document. There are a few more examples on the document if you want to look into that to learn some more. The example that we most love from Canada is Topshop from the UK inside the Hudson Bay Company. So the Hudson Bay Company has gone through a few changes as of recent, with Bonnie Brooks at the helm, and Topshop from the UK chose to come to Canada, and they did it in a really interesting fashion. So they tested the market by opening in Jonathan and Olivia, which is a very hip branded boutique at Ossington and Queen, and they opened up a pop-up store inside the back of Jonathan and Olivia. But it wasn't a pop-up store in the original sense of like 2 months or 6 weeks or a weekend. It was really there for about a year and a half before they came to the Hudson Bay Company. And with coming to the Hudson Bay Company, Topshop has really created a branded space with Topshop staff and Topshop inventory, so it has complete control over that. So that's Kangaroo store number one that we really liked. The second one, which is in the food category, which doesn't happen as often, Murray's, which is a branded cheese emporium in New York. They had 2 stores, I believe, for some 20-25 years before they signed a contract with Kroger, which is the largest US retailer of grocery product. With signing with Kroger, they made an agreement to open up 25 stores starting in the Cincinnati area, and instead of Kroger bringing in cheese anymore, Murray's brought in the cheese for them. So Murray's brought in cheese, cured meats, some spreads like olive tapenade, and it just exploded, and it did so well, and it became the reason to go to Kroger that the Kroger boutiques opened up into 100 Kroger stores within 12 months. And sales of the cheese area increased from some like 12% of Kroger's business to being 100%. They were selling through this stuff so quickly. And I think it's because Murray's just has such a iconic name and such a good brand, as well as Kroger shoppers are hungry for that. The next example is a nice little merger of 2 ideas. The Home Depot did some research on its target and discovered that its target was tradespeople who were first going to get their coffee and then coming to Home Depot to buy their wood and lumber and supplies. So instead of opening up a Dunkin' Donuts in the parking lot of the Home Depot, what they chose to do was open up a Dunkin' Donuts right in the pro section of the Home Depot. So it was now you could buy your wood and your lumber, and while you're checking out, you can grab a coffee and a donut or a breakfast sandwich on the way. And you can see from the graphic that we used here to express it, that it is literally right beside the windshield wiper fluid and the register. So it's really just like right in the thick of the retail environment. The other example that we love is for JCPenney. JCPenney is obviously a really well-known brand in the US for their fashion, but they also wanted to augment that full look by giving a makeup offering. But giving a makeup offering can be really difficult because they either need to have a branded makeup that's completely JCPenney, or they needed to bring in a number of different brands that would be able to, satisfy their customers' want. But what they chose to do was sign a contract with Sephora to open up Sephora stores inside JCPenney. So it's really a brand inside a brand inside a brand in this case, because Sephora carries everyone from Clinique to their own private label to Makeup Forever to Smashbox, and now those are all available to you inside of JCPenney in this fully branded Kangaroo shop, and the shoppers loved it. It grew to, I believe it was 60 stores within a 12-month period because it was just such a successful union. The nice thing about this example too is that Sephora is really famous for doing a lot of events, and they were still able to hold those events inside JCPenney, but then shoppers were still inside JCPenney, so they were able to shop JCPenney immediately after the events, which is really borrowing off those brand synergies between each other. The next example is an example from Australia by a brand called Telstra, which is sort of like our Fido Rogers here. It's this huge mobile offering brand. They do everything from mobile internet to mobile phones, data, iPhone, BlackBerry, and Android was launching their Android platform for their phones, and they really wanted to give people that real experience of what it's like to be an Android user and really pump up that cool factor. So they opened up a store. As you can see, it's really a box inside the Telstra store, and inside that box is a full Android branded experience where they sold the Android phones. You had to enter to buy it. They did a lot of really cool things with design. Like there were different scents in the store that matched with the textures on the floor. So there was one area that had like a grass feeling, and it had a grass scent to go with it, so it was really fresh and new. And inside the space you could use apps in a life format. So there was a wall-size Google Earth, as well as there was a fully functioning Angry Birds that you could play with your arm motion right there inside the store. The last example that came out just before we published this report was with Apple, which is obviously a juggernaut when it comes to retailing. They do such a good job at everything. And they are opening up stores inside of Target. It was originally slated to be 20 stores, and within a week of the announcement, they bumped the number up to 60. So these stores, here you can see Target's old display for Apple, which is how they were able to test the concept to see if it was going to work. So you see iPads for sale, you see iPhones for sale, Nanos, iTouches, lots of accessories. But now what it's going to be is it's going to be those great Apple tables that you see in the Apple branded store with Apple staff wearing their Apple t-shirts right inside Target. So shoppers that are walking through are going to be able to get all that great Apple knowledge that's only available through Apple right there in Target, and there's just going to be no dissemination of the brand whatsoever. And that's the Kangaroo stores. So please read the document for some more examples, and always email us if you have any questions.